Welcome to the Practical Enneagram. Vanessa Fernandez is the human behind the Enneagram workshop. She's probably my favourite voice among the second generation Enneagram teachers out there. I had come across her YouTube videos and Instagram a while back, but contacted Vanessa after being impressed by how she presented material at the recent IEA conference. Vanessa is someone who clearly understands and teaches from the depths of the Enneagram, but also someone whose teaching recognises that the Enneagram is a vehicle for transformation. I think she's a very skilled, effective communicator as well, which I always really appreciate. This is a broad-ranging conversation about Vanessa's guiding principles as she teaches the Enneagram, and also just me being nosy about her as a person. The Enneagram workshop specialises in working with network marketing teams, educators and church groups. So do get in contact with her if you're in the market for training or coaching. I will post the links to her social media channels where you can find some of her content. I hope that you enjoy. I reached out to you because I was inspired by how you showed up at the recent IEA conference. So would you share with me a little bit about what it was like to participate and how it came about and what it was like to work with? Who is your mentor again, teacher?
Dr. Egerton.
Yes.
Dr.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was reached out to apply to be a part of the discovery track. So I got an email from the conference chair, and I didn't know what the IEA was. But being the type 3 that I am, I was like, of course, I would love to teach the Enneagram anywhere, any place. I just love obviously what I do. And so I was like, great. And I applied. And so it was surprising to participate in that. I was not aware of the bigness of the conference and even some of the other speakers and mentors, obviously people that I look up to and have enjoyed learning from. So it was just such an honor. Even doing it, so the discovery track was several younger teachers who were mentored by more established teachers. And we really worked together as a group of teachers to make sure that our individual sessions had some sort of cohesion, rather than there being multiple different keynotes. We were all sort of trying to take everyone on a journey to have a good foundation in the Enneagram wisdom. So that was such a joy for me. I always love connecting with other leaders. And then, of course, the panels were fun as well. I like that kind of off the cuff conversational environment. So yeah, it was just a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed it. It was just wonderful to even have a more global perspective through Mamad, and then also Judith from Jamaica. It was beautiful to have their voices. I'm always for more diverse voices in the conversation. So
did you get a chance to listen to or attend any of it?
I did. And I still have a list of lectures that I still need to get to.
Yeah.
But there was some Gurdjieff movement that I really enjoyed. And then, of course, Dr. Egerton was my mentor. So I made sure to attend her Jedi training and a few others, but I still have more.
Yeah, I saw the Gurdjieffian movement. That was interesting. Was that new to you, that stuff?
I'm a student of the Diamond Approach. And so with my teacher, we do a lot of sensing practices. We do a lot of movement, a lot of somatic work. I don't know that all of it is exclusively Gurdjieff work and movement, but there's some overlap. And so it's been so integral to my own formation and work that I really am interested to continue to learn more about it, because it's been really beautiful for me.
So I always ask this, Vanessa, of everyone: how did the Enneagram come your way, and what had it become central to your work in the world?
Yeah, so I had a lot of blogger friends that were talking about the Enneagram and their numbers. And of course, it sounded like a foreign language to me. And I was just like, okay. And then I was on Amazon at 3 a.m. scrolling for things that I did not need. And the Sacred Enneagram was one of those Kindle 99 cents deals. And I was like, well, what the heck? Let me just download it and see what it is all about.
Mm.
And if you're familiar with the Sacred Enneagram, it's quite a deep book as far as going into a lot of spiritual aspects of the Enneagram. And I was blown away. I was blown away. Prior to doing this work, I was a health and fitness coach. And so I was constantly obsessed with the psychology of why we make the choices we make, why we have the habits we have, why we feel resistance to making changes. When I'm working with my clients, they would often get frustrated when they couldn't keep up an exercise routine that they had wanted to, or eat the way they had wanted to. And so a lot of it was psychology work. And so going into the Enneagram was just so beautiful for me. And I just got obsessed with it. And went, I have notebooks upon notebooks of me trying to draw the diagrams and the movements. I'm a visual learner. So in order for me to integrate it, I have to write it out myself, and even write little illustrations and little caricatures of how I would see each of the types. So I look back fondly on that time of me sort of just diving deep into the content. And then it became central to my work. I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, and of course I wouldn't shut up about the Enneagram. So they began to invite me to retreats that they were holding with their teams or team building events. And they were like, come on and talk to my team about the Enneagram. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't really know it fully, but I'll share what I know. And the first time I did it was at a retreat at a beach house with a bunch of members of this team. And all of them just started sobbing as I would describe each of their types. And one thing that has always been very important to me was to describe each type with the utmost of respect, and to highlight the beauty of each type, and to highlight, even in maybe those shadow sides, how those shadow sides are actually aspects of beauty and aspects of a deep wounding that should not have been there, and that there can be healing that comes in. So anyways, that was so impactful to me, to be able to bear witness and sit with these individuals and see the impact that hearing about their type and interacting with it and getting a chance to talk through it had on them. A few months after that, people outside of my friend circle started asking me to come in and do trainings. And so I just kind of said, well, let me give this a shot. Let me throw together a website and say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So it just kind of arose organically out of demand. And then I've just transitioned full time into this now.
Amazing. Obviously some natural gifts for teaching, and also what you say about it being important for you to teach them compassionately. It seemed like you got that right away, the importance of communicating the types from the perspective of you're not wrong. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. Well, because I could just sense that as soon as we started tiptoeing into some of those darker aspects of our type, the defenses rise up and the resistance rises up. And it just felt natural to me to pause and to make space for these shadow sides as not being indicative of there being anything wrong, but simply we can't have light without darkness, right? It's just another part of the whole. And when the defenses relaxed and then we were able to sit with our fullness, that's where the beauty of being with ourselves, embracing our full humanity. That's a big focus of a lot of my work is, what does it mean to be fully human? And that has to include those darker sides. So really trying to work with even the nervous system and becoming aware of how it reacts when we go into those deep waters has been really fun.
What paved the way for you to be able to sort of work and hold the Enneagram like that? What had you been doing before, I guess I want to know?
I don't know. It felt very instinctual for me. So I'm a type 3. I have a very strong 4-wing though. And yeah, I've always been a healer, even in fitness coaching and nutrition coaching. I mostly worked with breastfeeding moms to help them learn how to nourish their bodies so that they can be strong, have energy. So there's always a nurturing, nourishing, healing aspect to my work from forever. So I don't know if that was sort of set the stage when the Enneagram came in. There was already sort of a framework for that, but
what is your subtype, Vanessa? And was it easy for you to identify that? And how do you sort of relate to that now? Is that a big piece for you?
Yeah. So I'm sexual subtype dominant. Social is my least access. And it was very easy for me to identify that. Mostly the word that hit me was intensity, right? Everything I do is sort of full on and intense. And if it's not intense, I'm not interested. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but yeah. And that has been very helpful for me in my own inner work. I'm not sure if that's the question that you're asking, but it has been very helpful for me, even to stay present to those emotions that are not as intense, but still deserve presence and still deserve attention. Even the instinct to heighten emotions. I think that comes in my forewing, but also my subtype. Yeah, the work of just being with what is without needing to heighten, run away, or engage has been a big work of mine. And that definitely, I see my subtype showing up there.
This is not the one that's captured by the main type 3 descriptions, is it really, the sexual subtype?
I don't find a lot of identification in a lot of literature around threes or content around threes. And I've always chalked it up to my forewing. It could also be subtype related as well. Yeah.
The sexual 3, it's a sort of painted as a 3 who puts more into supporting those around them to achieve their goals. It's actually the archetype of a coach.
Yeah, it is hyper connected to those that I'm working with, that I'm supporting. Yeah, absolutely.
So values around effective communication and clarity that you were sharing in one of your presentations. Why does that matter to you? And how do you think that informs the way that you teach and coach?
Yeah, so I am an English major, English literature and words, and that's always very important to me. And I think it actually ties into the heart of compassion that I feel toward each person as they come into an understanding of themselves and their type. And I've just seen how language can at times be hurtful or miss someone. And when that happens, it adds barriers to the work that may be potentially done. And it's difficult because to put the human soul into language is almost an impossible feat. And yet I do enjoy wrestling with different words, different ways to phrase things, being thoughtful around what kind of language would even include a larger spectrum of humanity. A lot of language, at least that we have here in the States, is written from a Eurocentric, upper middle class sort of perspective. And so sometimes people who don't fall into that demographic just don't see themselves in the Enneagram, or they see what they know the world wants them to be, but not actually who they are. So, I'm always playing around with it, and I wouldn't say that I have it figured out or maybe ever will, but I'm always curious to know, how does the Enneagram miss you? Actually, I was just hosting a panel last night, the head triad. Some dear coaches of mine who embody 5s, 7s, and 6, and just asking them, where does the Enneagram miss you? And for each person, it's going to be a little bit different. But I always love giving people the opportunity to define themselves on their own terms and with their own words and kind of expand our understanding. I always think of each Enneagram type as a different color, but then of course, within each color, we have a spectrum of blues, we have a spectrum of pinks, we have a spectrum of yellows. And giving people the opportunity to define themselves, even within their type, is really important to me, because I feel like that's respectful and values their experience. Not only am I really mindful as to the language that we use, but I'm also really mindful the accountability that we hold Enneagram teachers to. Not that we need to be superhuman or not also have moments where we're not always living up to our ideals. But if you are someone who makes your living off of healing and speaking to the healing of humanity, and you cause harm and are not willing to listen to those that you've harmed, to me, it's a violation of the platform itself and the potential that it has, right? If the Enneagram is a tool by which we understand that none of us sees truth completely objectively, but we all have both parts that we can see very well and parts that we maybe miss. And actually, where we shine is when we're able to press into the collective vision and pull together and find that we get a more complete view of truth when we are unified and listening and curious and allowing people to use their own language and speak to their own experiences, to then not listen to others' experience and assert that your view is the only and right view, to me violates that basic sort of component of the Enneagram and what the nature of it is. And again, that's just my perspective.
Yeah.
But
what is it to be I don't know if this is the right expression for it, but a new generation Enneagram coach or teacher? Because you get flat. What are the benefits of being part of the second generation wave of teachers, and what are its limitations as well? And how do you work with those?
Oh man, it's very humbling to be invited to speak with those like Russ Hudson, Beatrice Chestnut, Dr. Egerton, and so on. I am excited because what I see in the next generation is a commitment to the embodiment of the wisdom, not just an intellectualization of the wisdom. Not that the older generation doesn't also embody the wisdom, but there seems to be, at least amongst my colleagues that I get the privilege to interact with, a real commitment to not just being able to teach and describe and explain the Enneagram, but to actually be an example of what it looks like when we allow it to produce transformation within us. As you know, we were talking about Russ's talk at the IEA of getting outside of the box, letting the personality type fall away, finding ways to work with ego and not have it be subconsciously dominating all of our patterned behavior. That makes me excited that it's moving deeper. And I think some teachers that have greatly affected me in this would be Marianne Gilbert's work with somatic and others as well, Dr. Egerton's work with social justice, right? If knowing the Enneagram doesn't have some sort of impact on our actual lives, how we move through the world, at least to me, maybe because I'm a 3 and I want it to be functional, I don't want it. I don't want to sit around and theorize, but have no actual freedom from my type. I think that's what we're hungry for. That's what it feels like with my colleagues. And that makes me excited, and we'll see what comes of it. But of course, all that we're able to bring is because we stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us. And then the work that they've done is fabulous. And in fact, I think it was Russ who said he had worked on the Ready for 12, 11 years before putting it out into the world. And I was just like, oh gosh, I am so impatient. I don't know that I would ever have the capacity to work on something for that long and not put it out. But I learned so much from that depth and investment of time, investment of effort, the works that they've put out, Beatrice's book on the complete Enneagram, just the amount of work is mind-boggling to me. And I definitely am appreciative of all that they've brought to this world.
There's ego to protect when you've got that much skin in the game as well, when you've invested so much in the research. And it's both of those people that you mentioned. I love them and admire them so much. It must get difficult not to get defensive about one's own theories and work, which is a benefit that the second generation teachers don't have, a limitation that they're not dealing with.
Yeah. And I'm always trying to be as aware as possible of my ego, but I'm sure it shows up often for me as well. But even little things like admitting at the IEA conference that I'm not certified was one of those moments where I was like, do I really want to say this out loud into the world? And but being playful with my ego and letting it be there and working around it and with it and dancing with it has been something that has been really fun for me lately. And I'm hopeful that I will always be someone who engages with ego as much as possible, to the effect of not letting it run the show. We'll see.
That was so amazing that you did that, and it because of the way you were showing up as well. It was so great. Did it take courage to do that? Yeah, I imagine.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. My mentor, Dr. Egerton, has just been such a wonderful person to work with. And she constantly was encouraging me to stay with your heart, stay present to your heart, and speak from your heart. And so as a 3, that's always a challenge for me because I like to be up in my head and just strategize and all that. But yeah, that just felt like something coming from my heart. I think it's opened up some really beautiful conversations, even outside of the conference with others.
Good. I thought it would have big impact. You could sense the impact. Maybe it's a bit of a big question, but what would you say are the most important things to be aware of, or what are the most important things that you're taking into account when you're teaching and communicating about the Enneagram?
I mean, this is kind of a reiteration, but respect for the listener. I believe that no one knows someone else better than they know themselves. So whenever I am speaking on a type or teaching on a type, I think of it as an offering, and then I allow those who are listening the full agency to take or not whatever it is that I'm presenting to them, because I don't shy away from presenting truth and presenting questions and ideas that I know will challenge those who are listening, even push outside of the comfort zone. But I try to create an environment where the listener is responsible for how they are feeling and interacting and receiving the content. And they also hold full responsibility to either reject or accept or question, or I love the interactiveness of saying, okay, here's an idea. How do you feel about it? What do you think about it? What's going on in your body? Let's interplay between us and find either common ground or truth or insight. So I see my work whenever I'm teaching as more of a stirring the pot, seeing what rises to the surface rather than trying to instruct in some sort of complete way and give some sort of like full definition of the world and how it works, but more so saying, here's how this type shows up. Here's some considerations. Talk to me. How is this living and breathing in you? How is it living and breathing in me? I really see the Enneagram as an embodied wisdom. So until we encounter it in another human, it actually isn't complete. And so my teaching, I love to have as much interaction and back and forth and breath into it as possible.
Yeah. Are you working mostly in corporate spaces, Vanessa, or is it a mixture?
It's a mixture. I work with some corporate teams, and then I also have one-on-one clients. And then I have a community where I do some teaching, and I kind of craft a journey, if you will, where each lesson builds on the next, and we have group coaching and such. So I try to meet people where they're at, whether they're ready for one-on-one or they just want to be in a group, which feels a little safer sometimes. Or of course, corporate as well.
I'm asking that because, and I guess the answer is yes, but there's a need to tailor the way that you're teaching to the audience, and what that looks like in a corporate setting. Is there a lot different to how you would ideally like to teach?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Corporate is a whole other thing. And I love it. And it provides a lot of challenge for me. And I think that owes itself to my type 3-ness, because on the one hand, I understand a corporate mindset. It's very intuitive to me. What are the goals? What are the objectives? What are the obstacles? What's the ROI? How do we be efficient? How do we, maximize what we have in front of us and all of that? And yet, because of in my personal work, I have experienced some of the poisonous effects of taking that all the way to the end, where you are actually a robot and not a human. There's always a dance that I'm feeling when I'm working with corporate teams, and then also being respectful to what they want, right? Not coming in and saying, well, I think what you need is some deep inner work, and we're all going to cry and we're all going to feel, being respectful and oriented toward the goals of those who have hired me, while also giving them something to chew on that may pull them a little bit more toward humanizing both themselves and their teams. And I have wonderful clients who are incredibly emotionally intelligent. So it's not always a huge work to be done. But what's tricky about corporate world is the corporate world is inherently unsafe to our nervous systems because of the power structures, because your livelihood is tied to you making income at that corporation. And if the ones in charge deem you to be not good enough, they can fire you and your livelihood is gone. And so your safety net is gone. And so you're right. So even in a job that you love, being at work is an inherently unsafe place. And so obviously our type structures come out more strongly when we feel unsafe, as they should. They're there to protect us. And so what does it look like to work with that while still honoring the fact that a corporate setting is going to feel unsafe, and dancing with that? And how can we ensure more safety within a corporation, but also how can the individual take responsibility for ensuring their own safety? What does that look like to provide for ourselves what we are trying to fabricate externally, kind of pulling that internally? So there's a lot. I actually probably will take this next year to do a lot more writing and thinking and content around corporate spaces, because it intrigues me, that whole environment.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's fun.
Are you planning on working on a book at some point?
Yes, I am. And that's been bubbling up for a little while. And we shall see. I have a lot of opportunities in front of me at the moment, and trying to sit with them rather than say yes to everything, which is my typical response. So we shall see. But yeah, I would love to.
Great. That's a great position to be in. So share with me, please, about your personal journey as a type 3 and a little bit about your practices.
Where do I begin? I guess I'll just start with what I'm working on currently, which is detaching from the need to see myself as the hero. I kind of talked a little bit about this in the IEA talk, but each of us has this identification, each of our types. It's like, I need to be this, and I could never be that. I need to be successful. I could never not be successful. And to me, successful is I'm the hero healer. That's my archetype. That's my little visionary person that I am in my head, or I wish I were. And noticing where that attachment to that persona that I have created in my head is cutting me off from large parts of myself, from large parts of my humanity. If I'm always having to be the healer hero, where is there space for my brokenness? Where is there space for my anger? Where is there space for rest? There's always people to heal. There's always people to save. Where does Superman get a day off to just kick their feet up and take a rest? So exploring that, and then being with my body. So this is a huge thing that I've been working through, is once we identify sort of, okay, I can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to be the hero. I'm stuck in this loop of always doing, always doing, always doing. I can't just break down those actions and crumple them up and throw them away. I can't just say, okay, well, then the healthy response is to stop doing so much for everyone and just pluck that out and toss it. Because all of that doing is actually at the center of my safety. I have constructed my safety around always doing. So to pull that out, it's almost like, I don't know if you have the game Jenga that has all the little Jenga. It's almost like pulling out the bottom block. Everything falls apart, and my nervous system starts to seize up, because I am now trying, in the name of being healthier me and not always being the hero, I am trying to remove this block that other parts of myself are built upon. What I've been trying to do is being with myself and supporting my nervous system as I gently start to release some of these behaviors, right? That now I've identified. I don't think those are healthy, but I can't just rip them out. That's actually unkind to myself. I'm not going to heal myself being unkind to myself. So looking at what it means to heal compassionately, looking at what it means to heal in a way that honors my humanity, and being patient, because that's a slow process. So even in the patience, realizing that I'm whole and worthy while I am staring all of my behaviors that I want to change right in the face, and letting them be there for a little while, because I'm not ready to let them all go just yet. That would be unkind to myself. So, there's always a million things, but that's kind of the most pressing.
Thank you so much. That was such a clear articulation and diamond approach. Did you find that through the Enneagram?
I did. I read Facets of Unity because I am obsessed with the holy ideas.
Why are you obsessed with them, Vanessa?
No, I don't know if it's for a while. I just saw them as like that superpower. Right? This is my hero complex coming back again. The superpower of our type. And of course, it's so much more than that. It's that essential quality that we've lost sight of. So that book, that's my favorite book of all time, Enneagram related. And he speaks of the diamond approach in that book. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't need more head knowledge. I need someone to hold my hand and take me into the dark closet and help me see that there's no monsters there and, be with me as I fall apart to rebuild and all of that. So I reached out just on the website and got connected with an incredible teacher. And we've been working together for since about the beginning of the year. So it's been absolutely transformative for me.
Really?
Wildly uncomfortable and phenomenal.
Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. My next guest is Tom Condon. If you're enjoying the podcast, please rate it or leave a review. That would help